the information was false, and being, again, circulated by students that were not knowledgeable about a situation. We're going to talk about the exact details of what we can share tonight. There are a lot of details that we're unable to share due to privacy rights. And I know people get frustrated with our communications that come out from the district, but those communications are what we are able to share legally because of privacy rights of our students. So just as all of us have students, if there were a situation impacting them, we would not want that shared out publicly with the entire community. So I want to start tonight by just sharing with you a little bit about our process and when we handle these situations, what does that look like? What do we do? How do we handle it? What are some of the things that we engage with? And certainly myself, Chad Lewis, is the superintendent, Mrs. Shunk, our principal here at the junior high, Officer Cassim, who is here as well as our school resource officer, and Ms. Bonbright, who does all of our communications for the district. Again, we just want to be able to share information about that process so that we can help you better understand what are those things that we have to handle and what are those things that we are able to communicate. So just talking in general terms, and then Mrs. Shunk will jump in about some of the things that they handled from a process standpoint. When we work through a situation that is, let's say it's coming to us as a threat, a perceived threat or a potential threat that someone is reporting, we immediately go into a threat assessment process with a trained team of individuals that are trained within the district to have the discussions about, okay, what are we dealing with? What are some of the questions we need to ask? Who do we need to interview? What are some of the immediate steps that we need to take? Do we need to contact law enforcement? And how will law enforcement assist in that process of investigation? And so we go through that entire process, working through an investigative process, getting information from students and witnesses, collecting all the facts that we can collect about a situation. Once we've done that, then we make a determination. What do we have and is it credible? In a lot of situations, the incidents that we get presented with are just not credible. Whether it be rumor mill, whether it be just information students are sharing, whether it just be students creating a narrative that didn't exist. And that happens from time to time. And our job is to make sure that we keep that under wraps. We are able to give them information and then make sure that we address the situation for them and be able to answer any of the questions that they have so that they feel comfortable here at school. This particular incident today that got reported out started as one incident and then turned into a completely different incident. So I'm going to have Principal Shunk talk about how she and Officer Cassim and other leaders here at the junior high handled the situation. What did it start as and where did we end up? So Mrs. Shunk.
Thank you, Superintendent Lewis. We got a report that was brought directly to Officer Cassim during our lunch, so around the 12:30 hour. And immediately, without even needing an investigation, we knew that the threat was not credible or that the report was not credible because the student that they were reporting on was actually absent. And so we started to investigate more from how did this rumor come about? Is there other things that we need to look into? And so Officer Cassim, in conjunction with the administrative team, we pulled in a number of students to talk to them. And what we learned pretty quickly is that the students that reported it to us weren't actually given direct information. They were told by another student. So that student came up to the office and we asked that student, where did you get this information? Well, so-and-so told me. So then we go to that student. And so what we learned really quickly is that the students started to perpetuate this story. And it was all, well, my friend told me this and my friend told me that. And their friend told them and their friend told them. And so we weren't able to kind of get a clear handle on where any of the information really was actually lying, like sitting. But we knew that students were concerned. And so Officer Kassam at that time, we contacted home, and then actually Officer Kassam did do a home visit to the student to speak with the parent as well. During that time that we were investigating, students got a hold of old Instagram images that began circulating pretty widely. And then within that time frame, a message that had nothing to do with Sycamore schools, but that was a previous police incident from months ago related to a state swatting incident, somehow got intertwined with all of this. And so then it became even more apparent that no threat was actually made in our building, and that the story started changing and changing. It was a bad game of telephone. Basically, the story kept changing over and over again between students as they passed the information around. And then Officer Kassam can talk about the home visit.
So the kids that came up to me to report this told me something totally different than what we ended up with towards the end. Because the student wasn't at school, we made the decision for me to go to their home, speak with the relative they're staying with and the student. And I feel very confident that everything is safe here at the school. Reported that back, and here we are just trying to make sure we're fielding any concerns. So I feel very confident and very safe with kids returning to school tomorrow.
And the difficulty with some of the communications is you've heard some additional details. It would be really difficult to put those additional details into a communication out to the community that would make a lot of sense. So, we wanted to be in person tonight and also virtual so that we could give people some additional communication so that, again, we can feel safe. I think what hurts my heart a little bit is the distrust that is always in communication. We're doing the best we can with what we're legally allowed to share, but I can 100% with confidence say I have 2 students that attend Sycamore Junior High. And I love all of our students that attend Sycamore Junior High, but I can guarantee you that I would never put my sons or any other students in harm's way if I felt there was any threat to their safety. I would be the first to communicate that. I would be the first to address it. There were other crazy rumors that I heard this afternoon from parents that were calling me that I know as neighbors and friends in the community. There were things coming up that a student was arrested at the end of the day. That is not accurate. There were no students ever arrested at the end of the day today. There was a rumor that there was a backpack of guns found in the school. There was never a concern about a backpack of guns that were found inside the school. There was no one arrested after a period of time. So those continued rumors only perpetuated the fear that we felt within the school and within our student community. It was very difficult as we tried to progress throughout the evening because we would love to reassure every family, every student, every person that we did everything we could to address what was in front of us, which was an investigation into a situation, and we did that. The couple of things that you heard about, the images that started circulating, they were not part of the original complaint that came forward. They started circulating after. I think as students' fear grew, they started sharing things that were from previous investigations that have already been addressed. There were some alarming images and disturbing images. There were a disturbing text or swatting incident, as they're called, from around the state. We believe from our investigation a month ago into that incident that was from the Cleveland area. It wasn't even from Sycamore. The pictures of a young person certainly was concerning, and we addressed that. It was not new to our administrative team. We had addressed that previously. But I do want to address the overall concern about when students post things on social media, what are we allowed to do as a school district? How are we allowed to handle a situation? If someone posts something on social media and it's on a public page, and it doesn't have any communication or connection to Sycamore, there is nothing that I can do. As the superintendent, Mrs. Shunk as the principal, or Officer Cassim as the school resource officer here in the school, that is not something that we can address just unilaterally. It would have to have some connection to Sycamore Community Schools. The pictures that I viewed did not have any connection to Sycamore Community Schools. As alarming as they were to me, they were not connected to our school. They were not taken at our school. There was a bathroom depicted in one of the photos. It was not a bathroom that is anywhere in Sycamore Community Schools. So there was no connection to allow the school district to weigh in on that situation. From a disciplinary standpoint, we can only address the situations that either are connected to Sycamore or cause and create a major disruption to our school environment that have that connection to Sycamore. And in this situation, that did not occur. So we were unable to address that.
There was a question that Mallory gave us about what was the initial threat that was reported. The initial threat was very specific to the student standing in the bathroom with a bag that had a weapon in it and drugs. And so the reason we knew that it wasn't credible is because that student was not in school again. And so we knew that that wasn't the case pretty quickly.
The other thing I just want to mention is I know there are a lot of people logged into the Zoom. The Zoom does have a capacity of 300. So if you know of a friend that is texting you or saying, hey, I can't get in, please let them know it's being recorded. We will make it available on our website and make sure that parents have access to this important information and conversation. So I want to talk about, just briefly, what are the next steps for us as a school district, and what can you as parents do to assist with these situations? Because this is not just a school district issue. This is a community issue. This was something that it got to start and it got spiraled out of control really fast. And I think one is try to stop and pause and ask your child or your student, what are the facts of the situation? Do you know the facts? Are they confirmed facts? Where were you able to confirm this? Because there weren't, if you could tell from our communications, none of the information that the students were circulating or perpetuating were factual. It was certainly rumor mill and kids talking and getting each other worked up. And it really created hysteria and a disturbance to our school district throughout this evening. We need your help. This is not something that the school district can tackle on our own. We do appreciate and we're very proud of our students in our community, because people are like, I've gotten calls this evening. Aren't you upset with the way this spiraled out of control? It's certainly a disruption, but we're not upset, because this is exactly what we ask our community to do. If you see something, say something so we can address it and get in front of it and make sure that something doesn't happen. So no, I'm actually really proud of the community. I'm really proud of our students for not being scared to go and talk to their administration, to talk to their school resource officer. Relationships are the core of what we do. We have to build great relationships with students. What we would ask of you is build great relationships with us, trust and call when you get these pieces of information, contact one of us. We are certainly willing to talk through these situations. I think one of the things that's going to be paramount for all of us to talk to our students about is yes, social media can be a very powerful communication tool, but it can also be very detrimental to students. Students need to be very careful about the things they're posting, what they're posting of themselves, and where they're doing it. There are a lot of consequences that can go along with social media. In this situation, the other thing that can happen is if we find that students are intentionally posting misinformation to create hysteria and create fear, there are disciplinary and legal consequences that can be levied upon them. And I don't believe so far through our investigations that was what our students were attempting to do. I truly believe that it was fear that was certainly pushing their communication. But if we were to find that to be true, we would definitely deal with that through a disciplinary process situation. I think the other thing that's important is how do we recover, not only as a student body, as a school district, as a school, as a community, from a really difficult situation. And we have counselors on staff that are happy to speak to students that might be feeling anxiety or stress about or fear about the situation still. We are happy to talk with them through those situations. And we will, even though I think I don't necessarily know that it's necessary based on the fact pattern of what we investigated today, but as always, we appreciate our partners at Montgomery Police Department and Blue Ash Police Department. And there's just going to be an increased police presence throughout the district tomorrow. Just again, sometimes that just perceiving that they're around makes people feel safer. So they constantly are present in our district. It's nothing new that to have multiple officers visit our school on a daily basis, because they care deeply about the safety of our schools and of our students. So Mrs. Shunk, one thing I did want to have you talk about with our community was just our disciplinary process. Like, what does that look like if we get a concern that comes in, and if it let's say it were founded, what kind of consequences could happen from a founded situation, and then maybe what happens when it's unfounded or there's unverified information?
So when if a report is brought to us, our first steps are to go and remove the child and their belongings from the classroom. Administrative team does that, brings them to the office. In the event that it is something that we need to search for, we do have the ability to search any child if we have any suspicion that they could have something harmful. And so in the event that it's founded, my first step would be to contact you and probably Mallory, and so that we can get communication out to notify people. I think that's a really important step. I think that also if it's unfounded, I would say from a disciplinary standpoint, we're also looking usually at 10 days with recommendation for expulsion. And at that point, it gets turned over to district office to make a determination about placement for that child. If it's unfounded, we are still putting supportive measures in place within our building. And so any report that comes to us is taken incredibly seriously. And even if it's unfounded, we are still taking steps, right? There's some reason why that report was brought to us, and whether it is support for the person reporting it, because we need them to feel safe, and or support for the child that was reported on. For some reason, we need to, look at their social emotional health and get them with a counselor. Certainly, we're always calling home to parents, regardless of the situation. Usually anytime a student is with us, we're calling home. From a disciplinary standpoint, low level, right, we have lunch detention all the way up through a progressive discipline to 10 days with a recommendation for expulsion. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, answers it well. I know we're running short on time, so I want to make sure that we leave time for some of the questions that are in the chat. So Ms. Bonbright, you could rattle off some that we can maybe
question about and we can't again speak to anything specifically about this
any particular
student. But the question being, like, does the school what possible actions are taken, like when something is presented to us and it's maybe unfounded, but they're something like a disturbing photo. At that point, is that something that we would continue to monitor that student in particular, just in general?
Yeah. I mean, I think that anytime there's any concerning information that's given to us about a child, it's our job to put supportive measures in place. And, whether that is through counseling, through parental intervention, having parental meetings involving law enforcement, there's a whole host of resources and strategies that we have to not only monitor the student, but then also support them to either make better choices or to have better engagement as a citizen, as a human.
Well, one of the things that we shared in the in-person session, let's say student A posts a picture doing drugs on their social media page. If it's not at Sycamore and it's not sent during the day at Sycamore, it is not a school district issue. It is now, if I have it or one of the buildings and we recognize the student, we will certainly get it to parents or our law enforcement friends, but it is not a school district issue that we can handle. So another good question that was asked during the session is, if a student is, let's say a student gets in trouble at another school district, does Sycamore have to take them in? It depends on what the issue is. If it's an issue that does not exclude them from education, then we would take in every student. We're a public school. That's what we do. We educate. But if it were a significant issue that led to their exclusion from school, then I do have the authority to make those decisions and accept them. But I can tell you, if it were a safety issue or a safety concern, they would not be enrolled here because that would be something that I would deem as inappropriate for our students and disruptive to the education of others. So again, every situation is individual and we have to assess every situation differently, but certainly we follow the law and we follow the legal guidelines that we're provided. And, again, we make the best decisions to support all of our students. The other thing I was asked is, does the district open up our school borders? Can anyone go here? You have to be a resident of Sycamore Community Schools to go to school here. But that also includes, people that are in, they can be in temporary housing. We have students that live in hotels. We have students that live in, that are doubled up with other families that are in crisis situations. So again, every situation is different. We shouldn't judge our students by where they live. We should judge them by the fact that they're here and they're our responsibility to educate. And that always is going to be our commitment to our students.
We have quite a few questions, so
All right.
I'm trying to get through these quickly. This one is probably more best served to you, Officer. It's that, is it okay for a minor to be in possession of a firearm? I think it's just a general question.
It's, no. Especially handgun, long gun, you can't be in possession of a firearm. I think that goes without saying, but then also, unless you have the authority, you can't have a firearm at school.
Another question just about our process when we investigate threats. Do we take into consideration any history of threats or violence during the investigative process?
Yeah, so we have thank you for that question. We have a building threat assessment team that has been trained on a national threat assessment model. And then we have a district team that supports the buildings. We run through a research-based approach to ask all of those questions. And so anytime a threat comes in, it's our job to run through a protocol and a process to determine if it's substantiated or unsubstantiated. And yes, history and any red flags, just disengagement from school, grades, any problems with the law, all of that is taken into consideration because we need to look at this individual from a holistic perspective.
The question about was what kind of communications were shared with students during the school day today or will be shared tomorrow?
Today we did not share anything beyond the communications that went out from district office directly to students. Teachers tomorrow are being advised to reassure students that they're safe, kind of redirect any conversations. We have not made the decision yet if we are going to do a school-wide announcement or have further communications directly to students.
Was there a fight at lunch today, and was this at all related to any sort of incident?
I am not aware of a fight at lunch today. If there was, it was certainly not related to this incident.
Okay. Sorry, they're flying through here. Again, we cannot discuss anything specific about a student. There were some questions about the image and let's see.
And I think we've about addressed as
Yeah.
much as we're gonna address about the image.
Let's see. What time did we notice that the rumor mill was starting to spiral out of control? And if it happened during school hours, why were kids able to access social media?
That's a great question. So in our building, we do have a strict cell phone policy. Anytime a phone is out, it is removed from that student's possession. We did not, the rumor mill started early. It had nothing to do with the social media posts until later in the day. But I would say by the end of school is really when we knew that things were starting to spiral out of control, but it was at the very end of the day, almost very close to dismissal. As much as we police cell phones in our building, we also know that kids will have phones on in their pockets or go to the restroom to use phones, and it's just something we can't really police to a full extent.
We definitely do our best to police technology, but you won't beat technology.
Question about if a child was called down for questioning about a situation, would a parent be notified that their student was questioned?
Not necessarily, no. It depends on the extent in which they were involved, and the impact on that child.
There's a comment that we all look a little nervous and morose, but I think we're just
I'm very tired. Sorry.
Yeah, we've been
We
at
can
work
smile.
for about 15 hours, so.
Yeah. Let's see. Will students, I'm sorry, that's more specific about the individual. How do we plan on, no, that's again, more questions about discipline.
If you have a process or procedure question, we're happy to answer it. We're not going to talk about a specific student. It's completely inappropriate. And again, it's protected by student privacy rights. So
What are detection steps the school might consider for no firearms entering the school? Or have we ever considered metal detectors?
we have not considered metal detectors. That's not been a discussion. And, I don't know that it's a necessary step for us at this point. I don't know that I would identify that as a need as much as I think what happened today is probably more important, which is students being willing to step up and share perspective on what they're hearing or what they're seeing. Today was what they were hearing. So,
Question if Mr. Meyer's video, if he could do a video about student behavior and safety.
that's
Absolutely.
a great idea.
How are kids who reported this incident, are they protected? Could they face punishment of any sort?
No. Students that report to us should be applauded, right? That's what, to Mr. Lewis's point, that's what we needed them to do, is report to us any concerns that they have. And, I feel really good about the work that Officer Casson has done to build relationships, because the amount of kids that have approached him today was really positive. Any student that reports anything at any time is always protected. We have a lot of strategies and tools in our toolbox that allow us to protect those individuals, and at no time are names ever shared. At no time with parents as investigation unfolds. Absolutely not. In this case, the students that we spoke to and reported they were in multitude. And so, the initial reports that came in, I know I've received some concerns from those parents, and, I can say that the investigation unfolded in a lot of different ways. And so this one was a really large investigation.
Question about when there's an unfounded accusation, what happens to the child who was falsely accused? Is there any policies in place for assisting them?
Yeah, so that is one of our concerns, is that this child did not issue a threat to this building. And so we also need to ensure that he is not ostracized by our students as well. And so we need to come together as a team and figure out how are we going to best support this child returning to the school environment and making sure that his education is not impacted as a result of a rumor mill.
Let's see, sorry, it's hard to dig through here. For students in our elementary schools, is there anything in particular or recommendations that you can provide? I'm not sure I understand this question, I'm sorry. For students in Sycamore schools, is there any particular advance or recommendation that you can provide given this specific case? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure what, we'll have to move on.
What, if any guidelines, do we have, for how parents should have conversations about this with their kids tonight?
That's a great question. So I think speaking to the kids, reassuring one that their fear is real, right? We have to acknowledge that kids were scared today, but that ultimately they were safe at all times, and assuring your children that, you know, we were able to quickly determine that there was no threat. And, you know, Officer Cassim is here to ensure the safety of the school. And he has a great presence in the building. And so talking to your child about just relying on the trusted adults in this building is going to go a long way. Also encourage them to, you know, what can we glean from this? What can we learn from this situation? Where were the helpers, right? That's a question you always want to ask kids anytime there's a crisis situation is, who were the helpers in this situation? And what did they do? What specific actions did they take? Redirect conversations. If your kid's in a group chat, shut it down. You know, let them know the facts that were shared here tonight, and give those facts and arm your children with them. And that's going to help to reduce a lot of fears. Also talk to your kids about the dangers of social media. You know, I think that developmentally it is appropriate that they aren't thinking about their long-term future. But that's our job as adults in their lives, is to kind of shed some light on this. And I think that kids not realizing what posting images can do, and you know what that can lead to, whether it's, you know, in 5 years from now when they're applying to colleges and workforce, but just talking to them about that would be helpful.
Okay, there's still quite a few, but I think we're gonna take time for one more. It is late, and we will try our best to fold these maybe into some sort of communication that we can share tomorrow. Lockdown drills, do we have lockdown drills?
We do. We recently did a tabletop, meaning we walked through like a scenario situation. We're in the process. Officer Castle was recently Alice trained, and so we're working with Montgomery PD to do an Alice training. Our 8th grade students have been trained. Our 7th grade students will be trained this year.
I think the final question is just, you know, what gives us confidence that there is no threat and that school is safe tomorrow?
I'll take that one. So this is my first year as a school resource officer. I take a huge burden with the stress that everyone's safety is my concern, and I'm accountable for that in general as a police officer. But it's multiplied by every student that's here at the school, and including the staff. So everyone's safety here, I feel that burden and stress. And if there was an issue returning to school tomorrow, or if there was an issue that arose, I would say something, and I wouldn't let that stand in the way of kids returning. So I just want to make that clear that if I didn't feel it was safe, I'd probably be the first person to push to do something about that. So I feel pretty safe about that.
And I would say on top of that, just from a district standpoint, I trust the people that conducted the investigation. I trust that when we go do home visits, and a former detective of 8 years that knows how to question witnesses and question potential people that are in situations, that I feel confident that they know their jobs and know what they're doing, and that we have experts in the field that are good at their work and get to the bottom of situations. I would say on top of that, I have confidence, strong confidence in our kids and our community, that they're resilient and they're good young people that come here ready to do school and are wanting to be in this environment and are not interested in engaging in misbehavior. So this place is special. This school is special. This school district is special. I believe the people that work here are special and do everything they can to support students. And I believe the students in our community are special. So, there's never, I can't give you a 100% guarantee that anything will never happen anywhere in the world. But I think the way we do business here in Sycamore and the special place and community that we have make me feel confident that the work that we put into today reassures me that I am sending my 2 students to school tomorrow without fear. So we want to thank you for tuning in this evening. Again, we had no idea how many people would be interested in the conversation. Again, if you know someone that was unable to get on, we did record it and we will put that out for people to access. And certainly if people have continued questions or just want to have a dialogue, we are always available. We're not going to be available any further tonight because we're all tired and we're ready to go home and get ready for the day tomorrow. But again, we appreciate your engagement. We appreciate your time. And again, we look forward to having everyone here at school tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.